Hey folks, I'm out here on the back deck in the Finger Lakes of New York, and I have been slowly bringing some of my plants in from Brooklyn, making a big transition to move to the central western part of New York. And I have to say, some of my plants have seen better days, and I think what I'm going to have to do eventually is just kind of restart a lot of my collection up here. We're doing quite a bit of renovation to many of the buildings here, and if any of you have lived through renovations or moves of houseplants, you could realize just how stressful or frustrating it could be. I have started to just recently purchase some new plants. And these are plants that I may have lost in my collection through the last few years of this move. So it's been really a 3 to 4 year transition already. And I don't necessarily have exact places where I want to put these. I don't have like a greenhouse yet. That was one of my goals, is to get a greenhouse where I could actually put some of my plants, especially during the renovation process. But there's only so much that we could bite off, I guess. So I'm going to be doing a little unboxing. It's not a huge amount of plants, but there's some really oldies and some new ones in here that I'd like to share with you. And it's been a while since I've done any kind of unboxing, any kind of plant unboxing, and especially with one of my favorite plant growers of all time, Steve's Leaves. So if you have been watching this channel, and I can't believe it's been almost 7 years, I think 7 years now since I've done my first unboxing of Steve's Leaves, and I believe it was the first unboxing of Steve's Leaves in the whole world, which is crazy. And I had been purchasing from Steve and his group of folks who are working there now, Rayne and a number of others, who just have been putting out so many beautiful varieties of plants. It's very rare to find growers that have such a myriad of plants that they offer and have offered for decades. And I have been purchasing from Steve for probably 15 years now, believe it or not. And about 7 years ago, I'll have to link to that video, I unboxed a number of plants from Steve's Leaves, and from that point forward, I think a lot of you have discovered Steve's Leaves as well and have done some unboxings, and I bet you agree with me that they pack and produce some of the most gorgeous plants. And they have been generous enough to give all the viewers here a discount, so I'll flash that up on the screen if you want to try out Steve's Leaves for yourself. And I'll show you what I got today. All right, this is part of the reason why I actually purchased from Steve's Leaves, because I saw that there is this plant that was available that I had recently just seen on a tour of another grower in New York State. Now, that grower wasn't producing it. It was on the sales floor, but it was like one of those plants that was not in production yet where they were. And I had never seen it before. And I was like, wow, that's pretty beautiful. And I'll link to that video and to that point that I actually saw it. And I liked it because this particular begonia, which by the way, Steve's Leaves is known for his begonias, but that's not initially why I had purchased from Steve. I loved the fact that they had a variety of peperomia, which still to this day is one of my favorite genera of plants. But he has been known for his begonias, and there are, he made me, I would say that he single-handedly made me come around to begonias, but certain kinds of begonias. But this one I had seen, and I saw that I was on the wait list for it, or as, like, you know, when you hit notifications to be notified when it comes back up on sale. And I was notified, and I clicked the link, and there was only 3 available. And I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna purchase it right away. And then I clicked on it again, and there was only 1 available. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna purchase it. So this one is Bonia U614. And this one, you can't see because it's not like fully developed yet, but it has this acer-shaped leaf. And what I mean by acer-shaped leaf, I mean that it has a bit more of a maple-shaped leaf. And as it gets more and more defined, it gets more and more serrated. A U number on begonia means that it's not identified yet, so it hasn't been taxonomically categorized, it doesn't have a species name, and it ends up having a U number, which is actually a pretty organized way of determining a plant's taxonomy and keeping it organized. So that one is a beautiful plant. Now this one I've learned is from the Himalayas. Now I am in zone 5-6. For those of you who grow outdoors, you'll understand what a grow zone is, grow zone 5-6. So it gets kind of a little chilly here in the winter months. And supposedly, this is a plant that might be able, if it's mulched very well, it might be able to survive my grow zone, more than a zone 6 and a zone 5. There are certain begonias that are hardy, and many of them are from colder regions like higher elevations in the Himalayas. So this one I think is from Northeast India. And again, you'll have to see the video of the older plant, the more mature plant. These smaller leaves don't do the older plant justice, but they just get more dissected as it grows older. But I love the green color and the red veination underneath the leaf, so that was on my to have list. Let me move these out of the box because I feel like I'm being dwarfed behind the box. I think on Steve's Leaves TikTok recently, they had them kicking around the box because, you know, sometimes our boxes get, things get broken in delivery, and they said, here's how good we wrap the box, and they were kicking it around. So I got a kick out of that, every pun intended. Let's go to the next begonia. I think my other begonias are primarily going to be from Brazil now. So the Himalayas, completely different growing habit. This one is one of the plants that kind of looks like, there's a number of peperomias that have that kind of circular leaf, but it also looks like a pilea, peperomioides. And if you hear the species name in peperomioides, it's probably like a leaf like a peperomia, because a lot of peperomias have this type of leaf. But this is a Bonia Goldiana, and this is also from Brazil. And you could see that it has this, I don't know if you could see, it's like a peltate type leaf, and it has this fuzz on it, like very little bits of fuzz, almost like a fuzz that you could, it feels like you could rub it off. It's very soft, especially on the underside. And the stems are incredibly succulent and also have this real superficial fuzz. I believe I might have had this plant at some point, and I probably have lost it. So, because I don't have it now in my collection. And I'm really attracted to those kind of peltate coin-shaped leaves. And I'm also really attracted to more succulent begonias, which, funny enough, the U614 begonia is not a succulent begonia. And I still have a number of my succulent begonias in my place in Brooklyn, but because most of the ones that I've left, the plants that I've left behind thus far, are still a lot of my succulent plants that seem to be a bit hardier. So that just goes to show you, like, if you're somebody who travels a lot or can't put a lot of effort into your plants, but you want to have plants, then look at some of those hardier varieties. And begonias are no exception. In general, if you're around, begonias are typically fairly easy to take care of. You have to pinch some back to keep like really nice form, which in some cases, a lot of our houseplants don't need to be pinched back to have a nice form, but begonias in many cases do. And some people don't want to, you know, take that effort or may be scared to do so. But this one, I wanted to try to give this one a shot again. I probably shouldn't have bought as many of plants as I have, just because I only really wanted the U614, and I probably would have waited on that one if he had more in stock, but he didn't. So I went and got it and put a few others in my basket, but you know how it goes. So here's that one, and again, I think that one is probably from Brazil, if I guess. I think I've got one more begonia. Oh yes, this is another begonia that was kind of on my bucket list. And when I was doing the begonia tour in Dallas, that was so eye-opening, because that's when I decided, wow, these succulent begonias are something that I really enjoy. This one looks like I need to give it a little water. This one is Bonia Kul, and I'll have to link again to that begonia tour. That was ages ago, but this one has a bit more similar fuzz to the one that I just showed you, the Goldiana, This one has a bit more like a brownish orange fuzz on the undersides, and this could definitely get rubbed off. And you could see it also has very succulent stems. And this one, probably like this one, I'm guessing it kind of grows on really dry areas for it to have this succulent stem, because it is a tropical plant, right? But then you have this succulent nature. So is it growing on rocky outcrops? Is it growing on like almost epiphytically on wood where it doesn't get that much water? Is it growing in the understories of forests? Is it growing in an area where there's a lot of sun? These are things that I think of even in tropical areas. I mean, obviously there's many different surface areas that you could grow on in tropical areas. But what I'd like to do is just, you know, for those of us who are into plants, and many of us who are probably deeply into plants already know how to do this. But for those of you who are not, I always like to look at the morphology or the shape and the form, the texture, all that type of stuff of the plant, and then guess how this plant may be growing or where it's growing in the wild. And so the interesting nature of this kind of fuzzy leaf, especially on the undersides, the succulent nature of the leaf, and also the succulent stems, which again, I am going to have to water this one. So this had been sitting in my mailbox for, I have to admit, a day and in the heat. So that's a little bit of my fault. I don't want you to take that out on Steve and his team, because they do right by their plants. Okay, so this one was a new Ceropegia for me. I sometimes say Ceropegia. I'm not sure which one's the more correct version, but I think this is a subspecies of Ceropegia linearis. So I thought, I like these plants that are a bit more understated. The peperomia, Ceropegias, the discidias, that type of stuff. Especially the plants, because when I was growing a lot of them in my Brooklyn apartment, basically I loved plants that kind of intertwined in between some of my bigger leaved plants. And it made it a little bit more like a habitat. And these were some of the plants that achieved that. Anyway, so Ceropegias, I think we know like the, this is a little tangled up, but this one is supposedly a subspecies of linearis, but I don't really know. I mean, there are situations where taxonomists will lump things together or split them apart. And oftentimes, if, you know, when they see a subspecies, it had been a different species so at some point, and this one had been a different species called Ceropegia caffrorum, I guess, caffrorum. And it almost looks like ruscifolia, right? So I'd have to untangle this a bit, but I was excited because I thought this was like maybe a new one that I had not seen before. And, you know, Ceropegias, again, are one of those plants that very easy to take care of. And I am growing quite a bit of them now. I took some of them from my house. There's still some in Brooklyn, by the way, that I have to take. But I have some growing in the meadow house down here that we had renovated and are growing extremely well. I don't have them in any kind of direct light. I have them in a northern and eastern windows, and they're putting out new growth this spring and summer, so I'm pretty happy with that. So there you go, that's a beautiful one. A little tangled up, kind of like a Hoyas, if you get your Hoyas. I'm always constantly untangling them. This one I had covered at some point, and I have this one still in my Brooklyn apartment, but I decided to get a second one because I often like to get two plants, and maybe having them in two places is a good move, especially if I lose one. So this one is hanging in the bathroom, but I figured I would get this one because that one hanging in the bathroom of my Brooklyn apartment has not put on too much new growth because it's in a northern window, and oftentimes that window is closed because it is my bathroom. And you don't want people looking in. But this was one that I covered on 365 Days of Plants, and I'll tell you what, the one I have on 365 Days of Plants is nowhere near this size that I have, and I've had it for a long while. It almost looks like a Hoya, kind of looks like green beans from far away, And there's not much information on this. This one's called Dischidia parasitica. Now I have seen this as Dischidiopsis parasita, and I think it has now been, the name is changed to Dischidia parasita, not parasitica. So I think that was probably just some nomenclature misunderstandings, and I have not seen this flower. If it's flowered for me, I have not seen it. I have not noticed it. I want to keep a closer eye on something like this. So when I saw that it was available again at Steve's Leaves, then I picked it up, and this is a beautiful, healthy plant. Looks like Hoya. You know, there's a lot of Hoyas that have this kind of leaf shape, but also I'm growing green beans right now, and this looks like green beans. It's pretty cool. So there's that one. And the last two, you've seen these before, and I'm planning on doing like a little peperomia installation in my diamond dove coop. And I wanted to pick up some more peperomias. Steve doesn't always have the peperomias. Obviously, they've moved a bit more towards like anthuriums, which their anthurium collection is off the hook. And when I'm ready for it, then I will probably pick up some anthuriums. But for right now, I am not ready for that kind of plant purchasing. But I wanted to get these two because these are some of my favorite peperomias. They kind of look like tetragona, the peperomia that is really popular. But these ones I don't often see available in the trade. And again, I think that's part of what makes Steve's Leaves awesome as a plant grower, is so many of those plants, you know, there's a lot more interesting varieties of plants that have been available on the trade now that the plant craze is kind of hitting full pitch. But there's other ones that I still haven't seen that much of. And I have this one, which is Peperomia dalstedtii, and this is one that I still have in my collection. I absolutely love it, but I have it in so many different places in the house, and I just adore it. And then this one is Quadrangularis, and this one I actually lost recently. So I had one of these growing down in the meadow house. I don't think it really liked the position that I put it in, so I ended up getting this again. And I had this growing in also one of my iconic like booby planters and in Brooklyn, and I had it growing in that planter, no drainage hole, for probably a good 10 years. And then it ended up just looking a little sad after a while, but it was just always fresh, grew very nicely, didn't grow very fast, but grew very nicely. And so I'm happy to get another one of these again. But the dalstedtii and the Quadrangularis, you could see that there's some similarities to them, especially with their leaves kind of have that more watermelon kind of look to them with their lighter green veination and their darker green leaf. Both of these are in flower right now, but sometimes you wouldn't even notice because the flowers of peperomias are pretty insignificant. This is my little plant haul from Steve's Leaves. Feels great after 7 years of unboxing Steve's Leaves for you all here. I get to do it all over again. And again, if you, it is not an ad. I feel like I'm doing a big long ad for Steve's Leaves, but I just have to say, I absolutely adore plant growers who have taken so many decades of hard work growing very interesting plants for all of us, because sometimes when I go out in the market, it's like all the same kind of stuff. And that idea of discovery, it's kind of like a new form of discovery for folks when you see a new plant. And it's probably in a little way the same way that when the explorers were kind of exploring all over the world and they found a new species of bird or plant or insect or what have you. And it's that little rush, it's that little dopamine hit, it's that little excitement of discovering something in a genus that you might have even liked or a genus that you didn't even know yet. And then you start seeing the similarities to some of the other plants that you grow, and you develop a deeper connection with them. So I will leave you with that, and I will probably do some more unboxings down the line. But in the meantime, I will see you later. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.
Stay tuned on Plant One On Me for more botanical tours, talks, and how-tos. And if you're looking to further your knowledge on the plant kingdom, then have a look at our various online courses from Troubleshoot Your Houseplants to the Houseplant Masterclass. Additionally, we have a second channel we started last year called Flock Finger Lakes, where we cover more on outdoor gardening, habitat restoration, agroforestry, and even more. So check that out if that interests you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.